All right, guys. So we will go ahead and jump into the reading. Like I said, I love the reading because they are the fastest increasing points. Most students hate the reading because it is the most tedious. Like there isn't much more that you can do than getting good at timing. And the way that you get good at timing is by doing a ton of tests and thinking about how you can get better at timing. So it is rather tedious. You will naturally get better from taking more and more tests just because you will know the types of questions that they are going to ask, and therefore you will know what to look for as you are reading more effectively. Another great thing about the reading is on most of the tests, students will score about 4 points lower on the real ACT than their best practice tests at home. Okay. But on the reading section, about 30% of students will hit the best score of any score they've ever hit on the real ACT. So even if you feel like you're not improving as much as you would hope this week, there's something about it that when you get in the pressure of the real test, that adrenaline helps some students, about 30% of students, achieve a focus level that they cannot achieve without that adrenaline there. So it can be a really great thing. It's another huge reason why you want to take as many ACTs as you can, because more than likely, you're just going to hit a reading and a science passage that you crush if you take enough tests. And so, yeah, we can't emphasize enough taking the test as many times as you can. If you guys are new and you have not signed up for the April ACT yet, highly recommend, especially if you're taking the March ACT or an April ACT at your school. If you have the opportunity to take 2 tests in 1 month, we see no better results from any other option. It really only happens in October and right now for this March and April ACT. Because if you take it 1 week, you take all the things that you learn, you know exactly what you need to work on, you're mentally prepared for it, you go and take it again, you usually crush that second test, at least one of the sections. So cannot emphasize enough, go ahead and sign up for both if you are at all able to. So another good thing about the reading section, like I said, is that a very high percentage of students are going to hit a 36. So it is, I think we are just a little bit below. On English, about 10% of students who do this program, who complete this program, hit a 36. It's like 8.5% of students who do this program hit a 36 on the reading, okay? But the difference is we spend a month on English and a week on reading. You can do a second week of reading, but most of you are going to plateau after this 1 week. Almost all of the students that you're about to see here got their increases in 1 week's time. So a lot of you are going to be in a very different place. And that's where I want to start off, is just by looking at what is possible, by looking at what your fellow alumni have achieved using the exact same curriculum that you are going to be using this week. So if I can get this thing to pop up. What I want you to do is just like we did on the other section, I want you to find a student who is at or near where you are and see what they were able to achieve. All right, so we got Caleb Kuhn from Farragut, 14-point increase from a 19 to a 33. Bobby Moran from Webb, 14-point increase from a 20 to a 34. Matthew Montgomery from Grace, 15-point increase from a 16 to a 31. Grant Coggin from Farragut, 15-point increase from an 18 to a 33. Kat Browning from Grace, 15-point increase from a 20 to a 35. Jackson Richardson from Farragut, 15-point increase from a 20 to a 35. Pellin Ikuch from Farragut, 15-point increase from a 20 to a 35. Bryson Kraft from Seymour, 15-point increase, 20 to a 35. Chad Airhost from LNN, 16-point increase from a 14 to a 30. He was the record holder for a long time. We didn't think it was going to be broken. Caroline Martin from HVA, 16-point increase, 16 to a 32. Claire Grun from Farragut, record holder to a 36, had a 17-point increase from a 19 to a perfect 36. So if you are at an 18 or below right now, you have a shot at breaking the record to a 36. And the current record holder, Mr. Anthony Montegudo from HVA, 18-point increase from a 16 to a 34. I highly doubt that anybody will break that again. If anybody breaks it, you get $100. So if you are either at a 16 or a 17 and you increase to a 35 or a 36, you would get that. Or if you are at a 15 and hit 34, you would get it. So either one of those, you get $100. If you guys break one of our records, would love to pay that to one of y'all in this room. And remember, most of these increases happened in 1 week. 1 week. So be excited. We got a lot of points coming our way. So we're going to talk about how they did it. I want everybody to go ahead and take out a sheet of paper, and we are going to be taking a bunch of notes today. I want everybody to go ahead and label this sheet of paper reading notes. Just label it reading notes. All right. And first thing I want you guys to put at the top of your page is 5 principles of success on reading. 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 All right, principle number 1. Never move on to the next question until you can easily teach the last question. Never move on to the next question until you can easily teach the last question. Never move on to the next question until you can easily teach the last question. Never move on to the next question so you can easily teach the last question. Say it one more time. Never move on to the next question so you can easily teach the last question. All right, this is not while you are taking the test. This is while you are reviewing your tests. All right, so when you are reviewing your test, you're going to do your worksheet for the test. And your worksheet on reading is very different than your worksheet on math and your worksheet on on English, okay? So, yes, when you will finish your test or challenge, you go back and review all the questions you missed. First thing you're always going to do when you're doing your worksheet, and we'll go over this later, you don't need to write this down now, is you're going to retry the question without looking at the answer. You're just going to try it again to see if you can figure it out on your own. All right, this is a very important step because you are training your brain what to look for, and you're also getting good when you don't have the timing on you because you got to be able to do it without timing to be able to get it correct with the timing. So that's where you're practicing. That's where you get practice without timing, is retrying the questions you missed to see if you can get them right. Even if you didn't get to them, you still want to be practicing all the different types of questions, making sure you can get them right without time, because that is necessary to be able to get them correct with time. All right. But you do not want to go to the next question until you fully understand why that answer is the way that it is. All right. And a lot of students, they like to just move on. And there might be some times when it is okay to break this rule, and we'll talk about that. But as for the ways that you have the biggest increases, is making sure that you understand how to get all the questions correct on your last test before you move on to your next test. All right. So that is principle number one. It's principle number one of this program. It's rule number one of studying in this program. You'll hear it again and again and again for our new students because it is that big of a deal. All right. Number two principle of success on reading is 9 tests. 9 tests. 9 tests. 9 tests. All right. A lot of students, aren't going to be able to do all 9 tests, but I just can't emphasize enough. Find a way to put in some extra time this week, if at all possible. These tests are only 35 minutes, so it doesn't take a ton of time to do them, but we want to make sure we're getting in 2 tests per day. All right. And that is how you get in enough practice in a week to be able to achieve a 10-point increase, which, just to give you guys some statistics, about 1 out of every 3 of you in this room will have an 8-point increase on the real ACT reading section. About 1 out of every 3 of you will have an 8-point. That's a 2-point composite increase to your ACT just from the reading test in 1 week's time. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but you got to fight and you got to try to get better. All right. Don't just be a test dummy. Test dummies can just go through and take test after test after test without getting any better. Don't do that. And that's where rule number 1 of never moving on to the next question so you can easily teach the last is going to prevent that from happening. Don't be a test dummy, but find a way to get in those 9 tests and do your worksheet properly. So it's going to take most of you about 2 hours per day to be able to do that. So if you haven't been doing 2 hours per day, this is a great, great week because every hour you invest is going to equal more increase than any other hour you invest at any other point in the program. So great, great week to be able to do the 2 hours per day. All right, next thing, rule number 3, or success principle number 3. Take all tests and challenges in exact time conditions. Take all tests and challenges in exact time conditions. Take all tests and challenges in exact time conditions. Take all tests and challenges in exact time conditions. Take all tests and challenges in exact time conditions. Say it one more time. Take all tests and challenges in exact time conditions. All right, so I want to take a step back to 9 tests. I want to make this very hopeful for all of you. If you get 1 question more correct per test over those 9 tests, that's a 10-point increase on reading. So all the time you're spending on your worksheet, all that time you're spending reviewing all of those questions that you missed on your last test are just so you can get 1 more question correct on the next test. That's it. That is all that you need to do on any test, is get 1 more question correct than you did on your last. You do that on all 9 tests, that's a 10-point increase by the end of this week. It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Yeah, some of you are not aware that, once you get to the higher levels, every 1 more question correct you get is 2 points added to your test, which also means 1 more question missed is 2 more points missed. So every question matters. And that's why it matters so much to fight all the way to the end of the test, no matter how bad you think you are doing. You want to fight to the very end. All right. But to go to all tests and challenges in exact time conditions, all of you should be able to get every question correct on every one of these when you don't have time. Literally every answer is right there on the page. It's right there on the page. So if you had unlimited time, all of you should be able to get every question correct on every reading test. There's no reason you can't. Every 8th grader is capable of it. They put some of the wording a little bit tricky and you can learn how to do that, but all of you are capable of getting them all correct in a limited time. The only thing that is challenging about this test is the time constraints that they put on us. And that is why it's so important to do all tests and challenges in exact time constraints. So you're always training your mind for the timing of the real test. All right. And for our new students that are unfamiliar with the term challenges, challenges are one passage in exact time conditions. You guys can all write this down. Exact time condition on regular timing per passage is 8 minutes and 45 seconds. You have 8 minutes and 45 seconds per passage if you have regular testing time. And so that is the time that you'll be doing your challenges in most of the time. We'll also teach you a 3-passage method that will allow you more time per passage, but we'll talk about that a bit later. All right. But yeah, for most of you, you guys are going to be doing the 8 minute and 45 second challenge time. All right. All right. So as far as the next tip goes, this is number 4. Do your worksheet every time. Do your worksheet every time. Do your worksheet every time. One of the lessons that you will do tomorrow will teach you how to do your worksheet for reading as effectively as possible. We give you an example of a worksheet of a student who increased 9 points to a 36. So you can see what it looks like when you're doing it right. But everybody's worksheet looks a little bit different. So you got to find what works for you. If you're getting one more point correct or one more question correct every test, you're doing your worksheet right. If you're not doing your worksheet as effectively as you could be. Guaranteed. That is always where the issues are, is how effectively students review their tests, which the worksheet is just your method for reviewing the test. We give you lots of different ideas of what works on the worksheets, but you've got to find what works for you because your strengths and weaknesses are going to be different than everybody else's. All right. Your attention span, your reading speed and comprehension, your memory, all these things lead to your strengths and weaknesses. And what I can assure you is there have been a student who has all the things that you have that are preventing you from hitting 36s that have found a way to have an incredible score on this test. And so it is just a matter, not if, but when. It took me 7 years of being stuck. I could not, for whatever reason, get over a 29. I was literally teaching students the ACT, but I could not get over a 29 on the reading section. And then lo and behold, a student came along. They figured out a method that worked for them that we'll explain later on. And I've hit a 36 on every reading test on official ACTs since learning that method. So, I mean, I thought, for sure, 7 years I tried to hit above a 29. I pretty much just given up, but you all, no matter what you hit, if you don't hit 36, you've got a higher score in you on reading. You might have to work on your reading speed and comprehension, and we'll talk about that. Yes, there is always a higher reading score as long as you keep working on your reading speed and comprehension and trying to beat this test. All right. All right. Last but not least, maintain a crazy find a way attitude. 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 It's more important on this than most other sections because you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to think of different things to try and just keep. A lot of you, we're going to call you up and you're like, I don't know what else I can do. And then we'll be like, all right, well, we're going to brainstorm together. And every student we've ever done this exercise with has been able to come up with at least 15 to 20 more ideas of things they can try after we really press them on it. Because the reality is most students just give up. They stop trying. They're just like, it's hopeless. And they don't try to figure out what different things they could try. And that is often all that it takes, is just keeping that fight to try find a way, trying different things until you figure out what works for you. All right. So, yeah, those are the 5 principles of success to beating this test. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about the approach to the test. And you go to 30 different ACT prep programs, they're going to give you 30 different strategies on how you should approach the reading test. I'm going to explain why we have chosen the way that we recommend. Our focus is to get you guys to 30s or above. All right. There are a lot of tips that you can do to add a couple bumps to your score real fast, but you guys are putting in the work that other programs are not. Most other students are not doing 9 tests in a daggone week, and you can achieve increases that they cannot possibly do. They will all plateau much faster than you will using the techniques that we do, because we are aiming to get you to those 30s or above. All right. And literally every student that has ever gotten a 36 in his program, it's like 80 or 90 on the reading section. They've all used the read the passage first and then go to the questions method. A lot of other programs, they do the questions first and then you read the passage, so you kind of know what it's asking. And we just are not aware of a student that's gotten a 36 using that method. We know a student's got a 35. It can work, but students typically go up and down and up and down and up and down if you're using the questions first method, because some tests it works on, some passages it works on. But if you're trying to consistently hit that 36 or above, this is, or, you know, whatever your potential is, the reading the passage first and then going to the questions method is what we have found again and again and again is the best method. All right. So there's still a bajillion variations within the passage first and then go to the questions method. But we're going to give you 3 main templates that are what will get most of you at least started in what you want to increase. So the first method that we're going to teach you guys is called the Jacob-Cohen method. All right, so everybody go ahead and write down the Jacob-Cohen method. The Jacob-Cohen method. All right, so Jacob Cohen did our program 3 times. And the first time he did our program, he crushed the English section. Ended up having like a 13-point increase on the English section, hit a 35. And he's like, whoa, maybe I am capable of more than I thought. But he bombed the reading section. He did all the 9 tests that week. And I talked to him about it after he, got his results back. And I was like, what happened on the reading? I mean, he had like a 5-point increase. He was at a 17 on the reading. He ended up at a 22 or something like that. And he was like, I just went through the motions. Like, I gave up before I even started. I just thought I couldn't read fast enough. And so once he got the belief in himself based off of how he did on, that English section on this first time through the program, he came back with a bigger belief and he decided that he was going to crush the reading section. And he was a slower reader, so he had to find something that worked for slower readers. And what he found is he read the passage as far as he could in 4 minutes. So that's what I want you guys to write down for the Jacob Cohen method. Read the passage for 4 minutes. Read the passage for 4 minutes. And regardless of where you are, you go to the questions at that point. Read the questions for 4 minutes. And regardless of where you are, you go to the questions at that point. That leaves you about 4 minutes and 45 seconds, or exactly 4 minutes and 45 seconds to be able to answer the questions. So you're moving pretty fast at that point on the questions. There's 10 questions. But Jacob was able to get a 33, had a 17-point increase on the reading section when he only had a 5-point increase his first time through. All right. But the most important thing I hope that you all learn from this is don't decide at the beginning that you can't do this, because you have guaranteed you're not going to do well if you have that mindset going into this reading section. And that's true for life and any section, really. All right. But the second thing is, it's really what he did best was have a find a way attitude. We didn't have the Jacob Cohen method at that time. He figured this out. He kept trying different things until he figured out what worked for him. All right. Hit 33 on this. And that is a fun way to do the program. So it ended up with a total 10-point composite increase, went from a 22 to a 32. So very, very fun experience for him. All right. So that is the Jacob Cohen method. 4 minutes on passage. Then you go to the questions, regardless of where you're at on the passage. You're reading very closely. You're reading very closely. You're basically having to retain everything that you're reading because you're not going to have a ton of time to go back. All right. But yeah, that is the Jacob Cohen method. All right. So next method, you can either call this the Lake Bailey method or the Macy Hudson method. It's debatable on who actually created it. Yeah, so if you're a guy, you can call it Lake Bailey. If you're a girl, you can call it Macy Hudson, whatever you want to call it. Macy Hudson was the first student to ever get a 36 composite in this program. And when Lake told us that this was the method that he used, Macy was in the room and she said it was the method that she used as well. So they both on their own figured out their own method. And this has opened up 36s to an untold number of students, including myself. Like I said, this was what helped me get past that 7-year slump of not being able to get over a 29 on the reading test. So hopefully it'll help a lot of you. All right. And so the way that this method works, it is 2 minutes reading the passage. 2 minutes reading the passage. And you're reading more to map out where things are. So write down mapping out where things are. You're not reading as closely as you are in the Jacob Cohen method, but that does not mean you're skimming. All right. Students that are going to hit a 36 can usually get 7 out of the 10 questions correct without looking back. All right. You don't need to be able to get 7 out of 10 to still hit 36, but that usually is. So just goes to show they're not skimming. They're still reading everything. All right. For those of you that are new to the program, this test is a test of attention to detail. That's one of the biggest things that schools are teaching incorrectly. They are having, you guys do this skimming method, even though the ACT is going to be testing you on those very details that you are skimming over. Excuse me. And so we want to make sure that whichever method you choose, you're still reading everything. But the first method, you're reading super closely, more relying on your memory. The second method, you're more mapping out where everything is so that you can go back, have time to go back and find those answers when you go back. So yeah, you'll have a lot more time. You have 6 minutes and 45 seconds to do the questions if you're using that. And I would recommend that everybody starts out with the Lake Bailey, Macy Hudson method, because more than likely it's going to be the best option for most of you. And then you can kind of go from there. All right. I've seen a student get a 36 with as long as 5 minutes spent on each passage. All right. He would not have time to look back at all, but his memory was good enough to where he could, take that time to read and he could get them all correct, even the line reference questions correct, just based on his memory. All right. So you got to base this off of your strengths and weaknesses and what you're seeing is working and not working. And hopefully you'll try lots of different methods. And now these are just starting points. Most students using the Lake Bailey Macy Hudson method read closer to 3 minutes. All right. Very few students are capable of doing it in that 2 minutes. So you just got to find, play around with how long you spend. See if you can push your reading speed. See if giving yourself a little bit more gets you consistently more. You can play around with all these things. You're also going to be playing around a lot with underlining. Underlining, especially in the Lake Bailey Macy Hudson method, is going to be key to just quickly finding those words to remember where things are. And the more tests you take, the better you're going to get at underlining, because the better you're going to get at knowing what types of things they ask about. So anytime you see a bunch of details right next to each other, probably underline that, because they're probably going to ask a question about that. Different figures, different when they change locations, things like this, you're going to start getting used to knowing that they will ask questions about. And just the best way to do it is to take a ton of tests, which 9 tests get you guys a lot of questions under your belt. All right, this one is also 8 minutes and 40. Both of those 2 methods that we've gone over are using your standard 8 minutes and 45 seconds that we talked about at the beginning. All right, and last but not least is the 3-passage method. The 3-passage method. Let's go ahead and write down the 3-passage method. So this will give everybody a bit of hope. If you only answer the questions on the first 3 passages, it's 28. You get them all right. Most of you would be pretty happy with a 28 on this test. So, yeah, that's a great way to do it. Remember, every single answer is right there on the page. It's the only test that this is true for. So if you have more time, you should be able to get more, if not all of them correct. You have 11 minutes and 30 seconds per passage when you use the 3-passage method. 11 minutes and 30 seconds per passage using the 3-passage method under standard time. All right. So you should be able to get most, if not all of them correct. And if you do get all of them correct on those 3 passages, that's a 28 on this test. Beautiful, beautiful thing. All right. So for those of you that just can't seem, if you find that you're never getting 8 out of 10 correct, then you probably need to switch to the 3-passage method after about your 5th or 6th test this week. Okay. But I will say there will be at least 20 to 30% of you who will have 0 increase for the first 3 days. They will end with a 10-point increase or better. It will just click. Something will click in your brain from putting in that many practice tests. And so that's why you got to keep fighting throughout the entire week, because you're going to surprise yourself if you just stick with it until you see, oh my gosh, this test is actually so much easier than I thought that it was. All right. Last little thing that I want to tell you guys about, because it pertains to the challenge that we're about to do together in class here, is the A-B passages, okay? So anytime you come to a passage that is an A-B passage, all right, and go ahead and just label this on your challenge sheet, A-B passages, because the ACT has started these on almost every test that they've been releasing these last couple of years. And so the way an A-B test works is you'll basically have 2 passages in one essay. All right. It'll have passage A, and then it'll have questions specific to only passage A. And then you'll have passage B, and then you'll have questions specific to only passage B. And then you'll have a couple of questions that have you compare and contrast those 2 passages. All right. So you can't really use any of those methods on an A-B passage. But these are God's gift to ACT test takers, because A-B passages are so much easier than the other ones. So this is the way we recommend doing A-B passages. Read all of A, then do the questions for A. Read all of B, then do the questions for B, and then do the compare and contrast. Do not read the entire essay. You're removing a huge advantage from yourself if you do that. Read all of passage A, then immediately answer the questions for passage A, then read all of passage B and do the questions for passage B. All right. All right. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a challenge together. I want to talk to you guys about a couple things about the challenges, especially for our new students. Challenges are where you master the timing on this test. All right. If you go to any other program, I've never heard of a program that teaches challenges before. I think that's one thing that we have figured out that most other programs are just not aware of. Is such a huge advantage. But it is so much easier to master your timing when you do it in challenges than on the full test. And trying to master your timing on a full test is very hard. But if you can master your timing on challenges, then you can definitely crush that test. You should always be able to do better on the full test than on individual challenges. Yeah, where you master that timing is on challenges. All right. So everybody go ahead and take out your phone and go ahead and open the app up on your phone. And we want to go ahead and we're going to do test 18 MC. Yeah, we're not going to do the one that it says on there today. Yeah, we're going to do 18 MC4, I think is what it is. So everybody go ahead and take out the red book. All right, it's on page 362 if you have the 2023-2024 version of the book. Andrew, do you have the 2023-2024 version? You got 2021, 2022? Yeah, so regardless, you still got 18 MC4 in there. You probably already taken though anyways, but you know, you can take any one that you want in there. Yeah, so as far as most of you are going to be on page 362. And yeah, for our new students, I'm going to teach you how to get your app set up. So go ahead and get your app out. It is page 362. What on earth? All right. So yeah, if you want to look up on the screen here, and what I need you to click on is go ahead and click on take a challenge. So you're going to have to click on the three little lines in the top right probably, and you'll click on take a challenge. Take a challenge. All right, everybody's good. All right, so yeah, so we're going to go ahead and click on take a challenge, and I want you guys to put in reading 18. Yeah, just put in reading 18, and it should come 18 MC4, and we're going to do 1 through 10. So everybody do that one right there. Just type in reading 18, and that'll come up. For timing, everybody just go ahead and choose default, even if you have extended time, since we're doing it in class together. But yeah, you'll obviously be able to do extended time if you have it later. And then just go ahead and click on all 4 of those buttons, but don't click begin challenge just yet. We all good? Good. All right, everybody online, everybody online tracking. We all on the same spot. Speak up if you're having a hard time with this. All right, so we're going to click begin challenge, and it's going to give us a pop-up. So don't click the pop-up, but go ahead and click begin challenge so you see, are you sure? You'll have your little answer sheet here, and you're just going to use it to fill in the answers for the challenge, okay? I don't want you guys to click it until, you know, I say for all of us to go. All right, so all right, so let me get my timer set up. I will give you guys a 1-minute warning. All right, so I will say most students end up reading too fast their first time. So err on the side of going a little bit too slow. I'll also tell you when we get to 4 minutes. So if you're doing the Jacob Cohen method, you can go ahead and move on to the questions regardless of where you're at. But does anybody have any questions before we begin? All right, this is an A-B passage. So remember, read passage A, do the questions for A, read passage B, do the questions for B, and then do those final ones. All right, in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, who got 10 out of 10 on that? Any 10 out of 10ers? No 10 out of 10ers on here? No online? Sad day. Well, yes. So hopefully you all will start to see 10 out of 10s in your very near future. And that's really what you want to strive for, even when you bomb a challenge. It doesn't matter. Like, a lot of students worry so much about the whole test score. Like, I bombed a challenge, I'm not going to be able to do well on this test. But we want to practice just letting that go. Your goal every time is just to have the best challenge score you've had. So if you hit 3 on this, you did just as well as students who hit 33 by the end of this week. All right, we once had a student hit a 3 on this challenge and then hit a 33 on the real ACT. So no matter what you did on that challenge, it ain't no indication of how well you are capable of doing by the time this thing is done. You just want to be able to get 4 correct next time. Whatever you just hit, you just want to be able to get 1 more correct. That is your focus every time. And then when you beat that, you just want to hit it. When you hit your first 10 out of 10, you just want to try to get 2 10 out of 10s in the same test. You just don't worry about the lows. You're going to have lows, and we want to keep making those lows higher, obviously, but really just get yourself excited about new highs or hitting 10 out of 10s is all that matters. Remember, you only have to get 1 more question correct per test to be able to have a 10-point increase by the end of the week. All right. So it is not a huge obstacle to be able to do. So now we want to practice doing our worksheet. All right. So I want everybody to take out a blank sheet of paper and just label this blank sheet of paper 18 MC4. 18 MC4. 18 MC4. All right. And what I want you to do is go to the very first question that you missed. And I want you to try to answer that question again. Some of you guys have closed your book. It's on page 362 is what page number it's on. So on page 362. So just go to the first question that you missed. And I want you to try to answer it again without looking at the answer. All right. Don't look at the answer. Just try to answer it again and see if you can get it correct. See if you can find the answer in the passage. Take as long as it takes you. This is the time when you want to do it without time, because remember, you got to learn how to do that before you can start getting it correct in time. All right, after you've tried it, if you got it correct, then write down what you learned. Write down what you learned. Okay? And it can be a lot of different things. But let's try to learn something. Let's try to learn something. Let's try to come up with something that's going to help you get it correct next time. Did you just miss a detail? Did you get tricked because they were talking about, something other than what you thought? And if you read it and you get it wrong, or you're still unsure, you can go ahead and flip over to page 441, which is where it has all the explanations for the different answers on the reading test. Okay, which you'll always find the answers at the end of the test. Okay, and you just want to go through, and when you figure that one out, when you learn from that one, then go to the next question that you missed. Try to answer that one without time. Take as long as you need. And what I want you guys to start to notice when you're doing these answers without time is that literally every answer is right there in the passage. And you should be able to name the line reference where it states the answer. One time we had a student who every test for every answer, we had him go through and just write out what the line reference was on every single answer. Ended up having an 8-point increase on his test just because he realized that, wow, every single answer is literally right there on the page. And it is literally exactly what it says. You're not reading into it. It's not the meaning behind it. If it doesn't say exactly that, it ain't that. And you're going to start to realize that the more work you do answering these. Okay. So let you guys do a couple of answers of, just try and answer it again. And then writing down what you learned. Try to answer it again, writing down what you learned. And in this what you learn part, get creative. Think about what could you have done differently to get this one correct? Like, what can you do in the future? What can you look for in the future to know that this is the type of question that they're going to ask about? Could you got better at underlining? Could you read a little faster? Should you have read it a little slower? Just think about what would be better for you to be able to do better on the next challenge, okay? All right, and even if you've got more to do on this worksheet, you can do that later when you're at home this week. But what I want everybody to do now is pick one thing that you want to try differently that you think would have the biggest impact on your score next time. And actually write it down. You need to articulate it. Take some time to think about it. Do you want to try using 30 seconds more? That doesn't fully apply to this since it was an A-B passage. But whatever it is, just think about it. Even if it's the exact opposite. You guys want to try the questions first method? Try it. You want to try, whatever you want to try. Just try stuff. Keep trying different stuff. Even if it's the opposite of what we have told you. Whatever works, that's all that matters. Whatever works for you is all that matters. I can just tell you percentage-wise what works for most students, but you could be an exception. So feel free to use your creative freedom and try different things until you figure out what works for you. But you really want to be specific in the thing that you're going to try next. And that way you've got a record of all the things you've tried and you can see if they worked or didn't work. Keep the things that work, get rid of the things that don't consistently work. But it's just continuing to think, to be creative, to come up with ideas, that find a way attitude that we talked about at the beginning. And that's your worksheet. It's just a piece of paper where you're analyzing your tests and you keep a record of what it is that you are figuring out and learning. These will also be what you will use to help you review every time before you go and take an ACT. So you'll have all these written records. If you don't actually write it out, then you're not going to be able to benefit as much as you could from the time that you're going to spend this week on it. You really want to be writing all of this down. All right. All right. So as far as this goes, let me just go over my notes, see if there are any other things that I want to give you guys as strategies. So there's going to be things that we share with you in the lessons this week that will give you lots of different things to try. But let me just see. All right. So for our continuing students, please go ahead and take a picture of your worksheet that you just did. Send that in to your WhatsApp chat and fill out your stats. Please get those filled out before you leave. You keep forgetting to fill out your stats on Sundays, and you don't want to do that. You're killing your team. You're killing your team. For all of our new students, we're going to stick around a little bit longer, and we're going to teach you how to use the app and whatnot. So all our continuing students, when you guys get done sending in a picture of your worksheet and filling in your stats, y'all are free to go. For those of you on spring break, have a great spring break, and we will see you guys next week. Ciao.